I'm resident of Collinwood, Joel Sage for YouTube, joined by my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to discuss the movie Pale Rider. It's the role Butch Rosenbaum had to turn down. Um,
because I was like 12.
oh god, here's man, this movie's really really good. I love how they shoot the opening here. But before we get into like the shots and stuff, and I usually ask you when you first saw this movie, I'm going to give a little pretext. Westerns, I've mentioned in the 70s you couldn't get arrested for making a Western. Well, by the 80s, Westerns were pretty non existent. I mean, and here comes Clint Eastwood on a horse, and he's gonna he's gonna play a preacher from somewhere. We'll get into that, but it's really, really really interesting that it took Eastwood, and why not Eastwood? I mean, it took Wes Craven to get horror back with Scream, but it takes Clint Eastwood to get westerns back again. What are your thoughts on that, Butch?
Yeah, I agree. Of course, look at some of the westerns, and from the earlier '80s, you got is Heaven's Gate? Is that what it's called? The one that was such a bomb.
Yeah.
And then you got The Legend of the Lone Ranger, which is a film. God, I wanted to like that film. I really did. But I mean, they were some of it. Some of it. Um, I think two big things. One, the Western was dying. That started in the '70s. Um, Partially because I think Clint Eastwood was one of the few doing new things. I mean, it was the '70s that John Wayne and John Ford did Rio Lobo, which is easily the worst of the their three films. The Rio Bravo, El Dorado. I mean, they made more, but that kind of trilogy. And then Legend of the Lone Ranger. They weren't good films. And Clint, even though Clint, I kind of consider Pale Rider almost a remake, reimagining, whatever term you want to use, of High Plains Drifter.
Yeah.
But I think it's a better film. It's interesting. I think it tells the same story, but it tells it better.
This is how good Pale Rider is. Pale Rider is so good. A movie called Rafe is going to rip off of its story. Sorry, Charlie. Shit.
Didn't Wraith come out before this?
I think Rafe came out a year after.
Okay.
I believe so. I could be mistaken, but I believe it came out after.
About the same time.
Yeah, it's about the same time. But with this, Eastwood stars in it and
Directs.
by God, produces. Now this isn't his first rodeo directing, so it's nice that he's had some films to his credit by this point. What's your favorite Eastwood directed movie?
Wow. It might be this one.
Yeah.
I mean, to give a truly honest answer, I'd have to make a list of all the films he directed, and and go, well, there's this, there's that. I think this is definitely he's at the height of his creative ability. I know a lot of people love Unforgiven. I don't like Unforgiven. We'll get into that when we do that film. But I just felt robbed in that film because, you get a Clint Eastwood film, you expect that big shootout at the end, and Unforgiven doesn't give you that. But this might be, in my opinion, this is, the more I think of it, this if this isn't his best, and for me, my favorite, it's definitely there in the top three.
I'm going to plead guilty to liking Unforgiven now
before
the pummeling comes when we do
hey man, it's not like a arguing point.
No.
It's like, I remember the first time I watched it, and I was just like, "That's it." I wanted him to go all Clint, and I've had many people, including the nicest one is our mutual friend Patrick McRae. well, that's kind of the point. It's like, yeah, I get that. I wanted one more Clint Eastwood comes in and saves the day and kicks ass at the end, and we didn't get it, so I had to wait for Gran Torino.
Yeah, that's what's weird. Like, he's older in Gran Torino, but what some say Unforgiven should have been was Gran Torino. And I can't say they're wrong about that. We will definitely get into that one. It's going to be a great debate. Here's with Pale Rider, great movie. What did you think of the opening? We have the the rich people who are controlled by the one guy in town, riding through his gangs, riding through the panhandlers camp, and they're just trying to drive him off and scare him. And this little girl's dog gets shot. Butch, it's a cold, cold world, my friend.
It's it struck me, and of course I've thought this before, and I'm sure I'm not the first. How much this film is very similar to High Plains Drifter, but rather than Clint coming in and whatting in High Plains Drifter, the bad guys do this. The preacher, in my opinion, is unequivocally a good guy, whereas the stranger Marshall, whatever you want to call him from High Plains Drifter, he's kind of gray.
Yeah. Well, here you teased something last week that I like. So after the little girl's dog gets plugged, she takes the dog and buries him, and she asks God for a miracle. If you exist, we need a miracle. And so, does God or does someone else send our preacher friend here, played by Eastwood?
That's a good question. And to really answer that, I'm gonna have to give some spoilers. When he takes his shirt off and you see the 6 bullet wounds, I've heard people say before, any doctor that would look at that would go, yeah, those wounds are not survivable by the medical science of the time, and that's not intended as any insult. So this guy is dead, and he's sent back. I'll go ahead and we'll probably get into it in a little bit more. No, this is not High Plains Drifter. I know I put that out last week. No, this is not the same character, and I'll get into why later. But he comes in. If he was High Plains Drifter, I would. You can make an argument that it's a higher or lower power, but as this guy's pretty much spot on a good guy, I'd say it'd have to be a higher power. Maybe not God, but definitely a higher, quote, good, benevolent power sends him.
On a scale of creepy, how creepy is Eastwood's character in this movie?
In this one, I don't think he's very creepy. He like I say, to me, he comes across as a good guy. Now, admitted, a brutal good guy when need be. I mean, when Hull goes into town and the part of the bad guy posse is beating him up with the axe handles, and Clint beats them up. And one of that's like my only complaint about the film. When I was watching it, I was like, oh, this fighting isn't very good. They tried. There's some quick edits, but anyway, if Clint were the bad guy or malevolent or creepy or whatever, I had one thought where he's like, hold out your hand, the shooting hand, and then he takes it and smashes the hickory into their hand. Not doesn't cut the hand off or anything, but it's going to take a while for that hand to heal. You won't be sending those guys out to shoot anybody. So, to me, he's not creepy or whatever you want to call it at all. I mean, he's reserved. He kind of keeps to himself, and you notice, like when they're talking about the campfire, about what to do to accept LaHood's offer. He never really takes a direct hand in telling them what to do. He offers suggestions, he offers opinions, but it's kind of like, if you know the old DC Comics character, the Phantom Stranger, he's kind of like that. He doesn't take a direct hand until he has to. When these guys can't stand up and take care of themselves.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. He's not. The reason he does this is because that's not his job. He's not here to tell them what to do necessarily. He's
Right.
just there as a spiritual advisor will say bullshit. Um, but, but he's really, when he's there by the campfire, he doesn't give his input, and you're right, I agree with you, because he just views as, well, you need to make up your own decisions, and he sort of tells them that too, like, it's not my place to say. And that's in a sense what he's telling them. It's like, look, this is, in a sense, this is it's your lives, it's your decisions. If you stay here, you know what staying here means. Like, if you stay here and continue to prospect, you know what that means. You know, the hood will put up a fight. So he's not telling, it's not necessarily about him staying or going. He's just letting them know, hey, this is your options, because the hood, the main villain, will say, he offers them legitimate money for real this time. He goes, I'll give you this, which is in a sense, it's a fair amount. You know, I'll give him that. And I do think he was going to pay it.
Yeah.
Because in many ways, because of the preacher, he was almost left with no choice but to look, I either have to kill these people or pay them off. And he'd much rather pay them off than just kill them, because he doesn't really want to slaughter on his hands now. He wanted to more, again, because if it was just about killing them, he could have did that at any given time.
Yeah, that's an important point. I thought of that several times. It's like, why don't you just go in and kill him if he wants it so bad? And I won't say he's not a killer, or he doesn't hire killers, or however you want to twist that all around. But if it was just, here's some foreshadowing. If it was just like the Burdett brothers from Rio Bravo, he'd killed them all and not batted an eye. But that's not what he's doing.
Yeah, if it was that, then we'd have a different situation on our hands. This he's more just wanting the land, and he's wanting them to leave it. And he goes as far as to have this fake written document where, I've got this writ up here. He says it to preacher, and the preacher goes, well, if that writ was as good as you say, then you wouldn't have to scare him off the land. The preacher knows that the hood's full of shit, which I like. You're right. The fight sequence at the beginning isn't the great. Actually, the worst one is when he throws the water, because he does miss, and I do think they tried to edit this a little bit over the years, but I think it's actually aged pretty well, because it does get everybody's attention.
Yeah. If we're only complaining about some pieces of wood hitting and some water throwing, that means it's in all it's a pretty good film.
Yeah, we're not going to complain too much about this, because it's bitching. I'll tell you what makes the preacher, we'll say, and I use that term loosely. What makes the preacher creepy to me is it's not just Eastwood, it's the little girl too. It's the young girl who asked for the miracle. When she's reading about Armageddon, the seventh seal, and you see Eastwood's character, and it's like, my words when I watched this in my mind, because I couldn't say them out loud, was, this is going to be a fucking massacre. And Eastwood's for everybody, but it's just like, he's so creepy when going by that window. And then, what were your thoughts because there's an argument between the Tin Pan and the woman he's living with, and he's helping her raise her child. He's not married to her. He does care for her. He does love her. and you have this unique situation where they're arguing over the preacher because he fought with the hood and stuff, and she's like, he's a hired, how do you know he's not a hired gun? He's like, I hope he is. And then he comes out in the preacher's outfit. What did you think of that? Because I love their reaction.
That's a great, point. Because immediately, Sarah, I think her name is, her attitude completely changes, and I've always kind of liked the ass kicking preacher, presuming he's a good guy, of course. Like here in, if you've ever seen Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, where the priest jumps up and he's like, "I kick arse for the Lord." There's something about that I find pretty cool. That being said, it's a good plot point also, because immediately you that argument is gone. We don't have to discuss that anymore. And it comes across that, this is obviously a guy who knows how to take care of himself. I don't think it's ever actually said what year it is, but it's obviously not that far from the Civil War. So he could you could easily say he was a veteran, and that would not be a big surprise.
Yeah. It's great that they don't really answer who he exactly is. They don't give a name, which I think is really important, because I think you made a great case that this could be the man from the Dollar Trilogy. It could be him. And so, I mean, I agree with you on this. It's not the man from High Plains Drifter.
Because we know his name. Even if he is in High Plains Drifter returned, a revenant, which, if you don't know, I know you know, but for anybody watching, is someone that returns from the dead for a specific purpose. Think of the Crow. That's usually the easiest. Oh, everybody goes, oh. High Plains Drifter, he was back to get some revenge. No, not even revenge, some vengeance.
Yeah.
Revenge being, petty and personal, where vengeance is deserved.
Yeah.
And we know his story, that this is not the same person. Now, I have my own kind of personal theory. There is, if you're anybody familiar, and I'm sure I mentioned this, the DC Comics character, the Spectre, who is the wrath of God, and he's sent to punish bad guys. Now, you could say that there's like the spirit of vengeance, a spirit of justice or whatever, and it reanimates corpses, and maybe has a fondness for making everybody look like Clint Eastwood. So maybe they're related that way. They're both vengeance-seeking mystical entities. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. See, I had to explain like the difference between the radio version of the Shadow and the pulp version. Like the radio version could disappear, could use like mind tricks and disappear and stuff. The comic book version, the pulp version, he couldn't turn invisible. He was a master. The Shadow's best ability in pulp is he's a master of disguise. It's not just the dual pistols. Yeah, those are badass. But it's when he's not wearing the fedora and the high collar. It's when he's in a disguise and he's getting information either by himself, or you're not even sure whether he got it or not. It leaves the question of, well, how did he know this? Because Walter B. Gibson doesn't always answer that when you read the old pulps. He leaves it to, he somehow found out. And he could have found out any which way. He could have been in disguise, or it could have been through one of his agents that we just don't know about yet, or we've never heard of yet. With this, you don't have that kind of character in this, but you have he's a good guy, but he's somebody who's very, very determined. Like you said, he's a revenant. He's come back for a reason, and he was sent back really too. This is in many ways, it's Crow before Crow. It's in every way, just without the bird.
Kind of like the Shadow and Batman.
Yeah.
Good does not always mean nice.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing too. Like if you want to watch like a Western Batman, watch Have Gun Will Travel. You know, in every way, it's a Western Batman. But Paladin is. But for those who don't know the characters, but with this, you have a character whose name you don't know, which I like. It leaves it. You know, I've talked about how Val Lewton would always leave the audience up for interpretation. Some westerns do this. We talked about how Hannum High did this a bit. This does this times 12 with the preacher, and I like the fact that they got the guy who played Jaws in the James Bond movie to be in this western.
Yeah, that's I showed them to you earlier. That's the first thing on my notes is the cast. You don't quite have the all-star names that you might expect, but yeah, Richard Kiel as Club, Billy Drago, who went on to be in Briscoe County Jr. and Charmed, Charles O'Halloran, who was on Hunter. Yes, I'm looking at names. And
Sean,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sean Penn.
Christopher Penn.
Oh yeah,
Sean Penn's brother.
Yeah, Christopher
And
Penn.
anybody that's been waiting for suspense when I said I was foreshadowing, Marshall Stockburn was in Rio Bravo. He was the older brother, Nathan Burdett. His real name is John Russell. When he was Claude Aiken's brother, yeah. When he comes into town, he's kind of tall and he's got a deep voice that I can't even attempt to do. I think it was intended. He was intended to, be the counterpoint to John Wayne. Another big tall guy, and he still has such a great voice, even at however many 30, 40 years later.
Yeah. I think Eastwood. I guarantee Eastwood cast him on purpose.
Oh yeah.
I have no doubt that Eastwood knew exactly who he was casting with that. What do you make of? I mean, John Wayne and Clint Eastwood never did a movie together, and Clint Eastwood wanted to do one with him. Do you think what do you think it would have been like if we'd have got that?
I honestly don't think we ever would have got it. John Wayne by that time had become such a stick in the mud, and it was his way and his way, and Clint's movies are making. John Wayne was, I think he was the number one star in like the 40s and 50s as in moneymaker, and I think he kind of kept that mentality even when his films weren't making that much money. And I could hear it every day. I think it would be like every day. Okay, what we're gonna do this time, Duke, is you're gonna walk in, you're gonna run right into town, and you're gonna shoot this guy. Well, hell no. I'm like, why am I shooting him, Pilgrim? Yeah, and yes, I'm doing bad impersonation, so you can tell who's talking. I think it would have been complaints and fights, and either Clint Eastwood would have to have the patience of whatever is the most patient thing ever, or it would be crap. I think you would. I really don't think it would work out, honestly. But it is nice to consider because I believe you'd have to have Maureen O'Hara show up as John Wayne's wife, as usual.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it would have worked either. It just,
you got the old world and the new world.
Yeah.
I just don't think John Wayne would have changed his viewpoint. I mean, I think we've mentioned about the letter that Clint sent to him, and John Wayne sent one back basically telling him, hell no, not just no, but hell no. And I'm paraphrasing there. And I'm gonna pull a quote out from one of my favorite fictional characters. Who gets told, if there is to be a brave new world, our generation will have the hardest time living in it. And I don't think John Wayne accepted that the world had changed. He was trying. When you look at like McHugh and Branagh, whatever that one's called, I think he was trying to basically make Dirty Harry and move into more contemporary films, and they're not bad films. It's just, Dirty Harry. Clint was in the late 60s and 70s. I mean, he was part of the cultural zeitgeist. He really got what was going on, and I just don't think Wayne had that.
Yeah, I think that you have to be able to, either, if you're not adapting with the time, try to understand what's going on around. I've talked about this with, the actor's name from Dark Shadows, Melissa Gallagher had mentioned him. He wanted to play cowboys. But here's the thing, by the time the 70s had rolled around, like I said, you couldn't get a. Don't get me wrong, I want to be clear. Yes, there were cowboy movies being made in the 70s, but at the same time, you couldn't get arrested for playing a cowboy in the 70s. So,
and there weren't many that did well. I think most of them started Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, and I think there was. I'm pretty sure that Breakheart Pass was made in the 70s with Bronson, and it didn't do well either. So it's like, it's a good movie. It's like,
yeah,
it's like there are some really good westerns in the 70s. It's like, what happened? Oh wait, it's the 70s. Like we've talked about this. Me, you, Patrick. I think we all said this on a video that the 70s had the best movies. No offense to the 80s, the 70s had the best movies.
The 70s were the last time, in my opinion, that Hollywood creators took chances.
Yeah.
I mean, friend of mine today was actually, we were talking, and he goes, "What's your favorite Planet of the Apes film?" And I'm like, "Beneath," which is the second one. He's like, "Why?" I said, "They blow up the freaking planet." I mean, that's a ballsy move. And it didn't kill the franchise. There was 3 more films in that one alone. So, you could have downer endings. Like, I know it was in the 60s, but Night of the Living Dead, where nobody survived. You could have those downer endings, and it was okay.
Yeah. With want to hear something funny? Speaking of movies that took chances, the movie of the Friday the 13th movie of Abdul Monday is Jason X.
I love Jason X. It is so ridiculous, and I love it for it. I mean, I'm gonna get sidetracked, so I'll stop there.
I wish you could join us Monday. That would be cool. But I know you got to work.
Us old people gotta get our sleep there, Sonny.
I'm so sorry, sir. No, with this movie, I really like the interaction between Penn and the girl when she comes to see how everything works. It's really good before things turn bad, obviously. But great acting in this movie. The dialogue is really good too between the Hood and the preacher. Eastwood, I mean, I know this isn't his first direction, but he really knew how to direct. I mean, he had great writers too. I mean, he just did such a great job with this movie. What's your favorite scene in this movie?
Wow, I got to pick one.
You can pick more than one.
The fight with the handles is a good one. There's not one scene that really just jumps out, but I do at the end, after Clint has gone through, or excuse me, the preacher has gone through and gotten rid of all the deputies, and he walks up to Stockburn, and he just calmly unloads his gun, loads it, locks it back up, and then he goes, "You." Yeah. So obviously, we are intended to believe that the preacher is whoever Stockburn thinks he is, and most likely Stockburn and his deputies killed him. Hence the 6 bullet wounds that we see on Clint's the preacher's body. So I always love that, because that's like the thing about having a great villain is eventually he's got to get his comeuppance.
Yeah.
And he gets it right then, because he's like, And then Clint shoots him, and then he's like, and he's still, he's got like 6 bolts, and he's trying to bring that gun up, and then Clint just right between the eyes. That whole sequence right there, it's like, if your villain doesn't get his comeuppance, I understand it doesn't have to be necessarily in that film if you're doing a trilogy or something, but if your villain doesn't get his comeuppance, you end up losing something.
Yeah, we've reviewed we're talking about the Angel of Death trilogy, and I do mean trilogy. Hannum High, High Plane Shifter, and Pale Rider. Each ending to these movies is different. Every villain gets their comeuppance, whether it's Ed Begley's character Hannon himself, whether it's the guy getting shot by the little man in the back, which I like. But with this, you get Eastwood's character shooting him a bunch of times, and then in the head. And like you said, he says, "You." My favorite scene actually is a little bit before that, when the Hood is telling Stockbird about this preacher. He goes, "This preacher came in and shot him full of sass, and he whipped 4 of my men." He goes, "Preacher did like Stockbird's like, what the, like the preacher did that." I love the actors like facial reaction to like who did you piss off? And it's like he's asking him that without asking him that. And he goes, the preacher's eyes, they were like mean and angry. And he goes, "Does it sound like anybody you know?" He goes, "That sounds like a man,
I used to know."
And he goes, "Maybe he recognized your name." And he goes, "No, the man I'm thinking about is dead." So you get that. There's so much great tension there. And then later, what happens later is just a great payoff to it. It all. Good, sorry.
I was just say all 3 of the main villains get a very karmic death.
Yep.
Ed Begley character hangs himself after he hangs Clint Eastwood. Jeffrey Lewis. One of his friends gets whipped, which is appropriate, and then he gets shot. With a town on fire. Just even though the town is not on fire when the marshal gets it, it's very appropriate. And then right here, Stockburn gets shot multiple times, and it makes me think of the role playing game Deadlands. There's a process where your character can come back from the dead. Yeah. But if you're shot in the head, you can't. So it's every time when he shoots Stockburn in the head, it's like, you ain't coming back. But every character in these films, the main villain gets a very karmic death.
I gotta tell you, Butch, I did a real no in Hunt Showdown. I was teaming with, because when you team with people, you're teaming with people you don't know, and I was shooting another hunter, so were my teammates, and I didn't realize they were moving in on him. Well, I shot the hunter, and then there was this other hunter near an explosive barrel coming up in front of them. Well, I didn't realize where they exactly were, and I shot the explosive barrel, and I killed not only the other hunter, but my teammates. And then when I revived them, my teammates killed me, and they didn't revive me. So justice was served. Anyway. Oh God!
What? I did some checking on. Pardon the glasses, folks. It's getting a little blurry. The Internet Movie Firearm Database, and I found this interesting. All of the deputies use the same gun. Yeah. It's a Colt 1860 Army, and Clint uses a Remington 1858 and a new Army and a pocket. All of the handguns are conversions from percussion caps and ball and cap to accept cylinders. So when Clint is unloading his gun, you see him like pull the bottom out, and he pulls the cylinder out, and he loads another one, and they're already preloaded, almost like a speed load, which if you don't know what that is, it's a little thing that holds enough bullets and you just slam it into the cylinder and it's ready to go. And I think that was, I always thought that was really interesting. And Hull, when he shoots LaHood, is using a Sharps 1874. And they have a, LaHood is using, it's supposed to be a Henry 1860, but it's actually a Winchester made to look like that. Here's a nice tie-in, and I'll stop talking about guns and hear it right after this. LaHood's Henry 1860 is in Red Dead Redemption as a Lancaster repeater rifle.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was kind of interesting.
There's some gun porn in this movie, and there's definitely some gun porn in Red Dead Redemption.
I was thinking, and wouldn't Stockburn and his deputies been great villains in Red Dead?
In a way, you sort of, depending on where you are with Red Dead Redemption 2, you can catch there's bounty hunters who wear sort of coats the way Stockburn's men are, but because there's been a couple where, like, I was collecting this one bounty during the story campaign where there was this bounty hunter who, I'm not saying facially he looked like Stockburn, but he was wearing like the Stockburn over the duster coat,
the yellow duster.
Yeah, and it's just like, I'm like, that looks like Stockburn, one of Stockburn's men from Pale Rider. And here's the thing. Now you have two options in Red Dead Redemption 2. You could use the Butch Rosenbalm option and shoot him. You could use my option and shoot him, or you could use the third option and just run away from him. Me and Bush suggest you use our options and just shoot the hell out of them because they're going to shoot you anyway.
What are you talking about? There's one option. You shoot them. It's so much easier. Though there are a couple of missions. I really like it where you capture them and you put them on the back of the horse and they'll start talking, and Arthur can just reach back and just conk him with his gun or his hand or whatever. It's like, I wish you could do that with every person that's tied on the back of your horse.
Yeah.
He had a few more teeth when I picked him up, but he got mouthy.
What's your favorite town in Red Dead Redemption 2?
Oh, wow. Really, it's Saint Denis because there's so much going on there. Have you fought the vampire yet?
I keep looking for
the vampire. Have you run into the night men yet, or the night people?
Oh, the night people. Yeah, let me tell you, me and the night people got real acquainted real fast. Let me tell you,
they are some creepy folk. And I was playing the other night, and I was down around Saint Denis, and it was in the game. It was late at night, and my horse kept getting scared of something, and I kept looking at the little mini map. Okay, it's an alligator or something. Never did the red thing telling you something was coming. I'm like, I bet it's not people. I'm staying far enough away that they can't get to me just yet. But
this is dangerous advice, so you can take it or leave it. When you getting near the area, not too close, leave your horse, just take your knife, crouch, and cut through the woods. Use Deadeye, and you'll see them. I did this once, and I caught one moving, and I went where he was, and I slit his throat.
Or I agree with leaving your horse behind. And of course, you want to rub it down and pat it and give it some food so it feels loved. Take the Lamat revolver.
Yes.
Which, I guess it's historically accurate. It's not a super weapon. The thing I love about the Lamat is, for anybody that doesn't know it, it's I think it's actually an 8-shooter, but I mean it's a 6-gun, but it has a shotgun underneath it.
Yes.
So you take dual, or you can take the dual sawed-off shotguns. That's when Lenny got killed in Rhodes.
Yeah.
I loaded up double, and I just went through. I was killing everybody, and I went through it. Rhodes was a population 1 of me. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, the thing I like about the Lamat is you can shoot your 6 or 8 or how many shots, and if they're still coming, click it down to a shotgun. Say goodnight, creep. Bam.
You, in Hunt Showdown, you get a Lamat pistol and you get a Lamat rifle. And my favorite weapon though in Hunt Showdown is gotta be the bomb lance. So let me tell you what. It's a sword where you can slice somebody in half and just kill a hunter up close, or you could take the bomb arrow and just and blow their ass up. But you got to be real accurate with that, because if you accidentally kill your partners, not that I would ever do such a thing, uh, but yeah, that happens. Accidents happen in Hunt Showdown. That's what I'm calling them.
You got to watch out with the dynamite arrows also.
Yes, those two. You know what's crazy? When somebody else is shooting the dynamite arrows at you and they miss and one explodes by your ass.
Or just to any part of you in general.
Yeah, or just any part in general. But back to the movie, but the host is to blame for going off topic. I really like how they made the town look, the camp look, and the hood's workplace look. You have a lot of different locations in this movie that look beautiful. What did you think, Butch?
Yeah, it looked. It may be my TV, but every time they went inside, it was so friggin' dark.
Yeah.
That was my only real complaint. It looks real. It looks authentic. It's like it. When you see something like that, I don't know how historically accurate it is, but at least from a theatrical film, it helps you bring you in. According to I believe it's Wikipedia, this was filmed in the same place that Back to the Future 3 was filmed.
Cool.
Which, anybody remembers the name that Marty McFly gives is Clint Eastwood, and a kind of sissy name is that.
I like the roast of Clint. Well, it was the AI Lifetime Achievement Award or something for Clint Eastwood, and Don Wrinkles got up and he says, "Clint, I'll tell you because it's the truth. You're a lousy actor."
Let's be honest. Clint does not have a great range.
No.
I always talk, I was like, Clint knew his range and he stayed in it. His metaphorical son, Harrison Ford, didn't, because Harrison Ford has a very similar limited range, in my opinion. We'll probably see some comments on the video, and that's fine. And then his grandson, Nathan Fillion, he has no range, but that's a whole nother story. Clint knew what he could do and what he couldn't do. I've never seen Bridges in Madison County, but other than that, I think I've seen the vast majority of Clint films. And Clint is Clint. I've heard people talk bad about, well, actors start playing them, like they call it themselves, but it's a certain range. You want crazy, you get Jack Nicholson. Can't afford Jack Nicholson, you get Dennis Hopper. John Wayne, Clint Eastwood. You've got a point. Yes, they start playing similar characters, but one, you hire Johnny Depp because Johnny Depp's going to bring in a lot of money, even when he's doing Johnny Depp. The difference is a lot of those actors I just named can act. Jack Nicholson is a fantastic actor. So is Johnny Depp. I mean, what's Blow?
Go ahead, I'll be right back.
Okay, I think it's Blow where Johnny Depp is a drug, but he does a great job. If you think Jack Nicholson just does crazy, get a movie called Ironweed with Meryl Streep. So you have the two people who have been nominated for Oscars the most, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a very depressing movie. But these two just put on a tour de force, especially towards the beginning when Jack's character goes to the graveyard, and he comes to, I believe it's his son's gravestone, and he's talking about how the son died, and it's just like, oh my God. Okay, well,
I'm coming.
okay, he's back. Okay, I can't see you, so I was like, okay, what am I going to say now?
Now I was getting my son a drink. So. You know, with this movie overall, I really like how everything was shot. I like inside the hood's headquarters. His room is dark, like, and I think it's done on purpose. Like his soul is dark, so he's dark.
Yeah, I was going to say, because when Clint goes into the general store with the little skinny man and the woman was in so many TV shows, and I should know her name, but I don't. It's kind of redheaded. You can see where it's going on in there.
Yeah.
And Clint sits down, has coffee, and sets up an ambush for La Hood's men. But yeah, you go into the Hood, and it's just dark. I mean, the only light is coming through the window, seemingly, and so that's really, pun intended, a reflection of him.
Yeah. Is he more, because I would say Stockburn's men are sort of, I know he's hiring Stockburn's men. You think he's more of a MacGuffin in this story, Butch, the Hood?
I think he's a little bit more, but I think that's an accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, by the definition, MacGuffin is something that just makes the plot go. So he kind of is. I think he's a little bit more, because he's like we said, if he was just a straight up bad guy, he would have had the people killed right away.
Yeah.
So that gives him a little bit more, but yeah, for the most part, he's pretty much a MacGuffin, and he's like, there's a term for it, and I can't think of it. He's like the Emperor, and Stockburn is like Darth Vader, which is sometimes called the Dragon, which is the main bad guy who goes out and does stuff, and it the Emperor just kind of sits there and laughs at you when you try to strike him down.
Yeah.
And the Stockburn, the Dragon, Vader, they're the ones that actually go out and do stuff.
I have some video game questions for you when we get done here. But with this, like, he's very businessman, like, because he is. I mean, he's trying everything not, and in a lot of ways throughout the movie, he's trying not to kill them. He tells them to scare them off. The only thing they kill is the dog. And it ends up, and then, yeah, no one cares about. They were going to kill the cow.
Were they?
What do you think they were going to eat later that night? No.
The one thing I did want to mention, because now that you brought that up, the shooting of the dog is very discretionary.
Yeah.
You see the dog running, and then I think whichever one of the Hood's men, it's the guy with the long kind of flowing hair. It's like, first of all, it's like, dude, be a man, get your hair cut. Second of all, then he pulls out his gun, and you see him, and you see him shoot, and then you just hear a dog go, arr! So I appreciate it not being some kind of graphic squid flowing out of the dog, and the dog, we don't need to see that. I think it actually works better not showing it. You're just like, you dirty son bitch. I can't wait for Clint to get a hold of you.
Yeah, it really does feel like that way too. Especially when the little girl's praying for the miracle and stuff. It's like, yeah. I kept, when I was in high school, I kept telling people about the movie Pale Rider. I'm like, you guys all got to go see that movie. And they're like, what is it? It's a Western. Oh, it's a Western. Like, you're all going to hell for saying that. But I really like the fact that you're right. The dog has made the preference for all this. And the little girl, the young lady, I should say, her character is very underrated in this story. I like her as a character. What did you think, Butch?
Yeah, I like her. I was thinking about True Grit with the character of Maddie, and you can actually talk about either version of that film. I hate Maddie, the character. I just don't like the way she is. But Megan, I had to think of her name for a second. Megan is a much more interesting character. She seems more real, you know. You're 14 and your dog gets killed, you know, she just takes off and she buries it. And her whole little prayer, I realized that, you know, she didn't write it, but it's an incredibly understandable thing to say at that moment. And, you know, she ends up falling for the preacher and kind of offers herself to him, which is a little creepy when you realize Clint Eastwood's 55 at the time. There's a big 40 years difference. But and then when she goes over to LaHood's camp and the son, I can't think of his name, but played by Christopher Penn, and he tries to, you know, he tries to rape her, and it's like, dude, she's 14.
Yeah, yeah, like the attempt at rape scene is a bit cringe. It doesn't go through, thank God.
Thank God, yes.
Like this isn't High Plains Drifter. But yeah, she now if you want to see like Kim Darby's character in the original True Grit, yeah, she is Maddie Ross is a bit annoying. Now, if you want to see a character that Kim Darby plays gets killed off, watch Halloween 6. The Curse
Yes.
of More. Come on. Butch, I have a feeling you play that in slow motion.
Nah, not really. I will admit to enjoying the Tom Cruise movie where he keeps getting killed because he learns from each. I call it the video game movie.
Yeah, I know.
And just watching him being killed over and over, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't want Tom any real life hurt to come to him.
Right.
Okay, you know, I totally understand fantasy and reality. So watching him not really die over and over, it's like, you're so annoying. Thank you.
I really like Stockburn's men as the overall villains of this movie. They did a really good job because they don't show up till close to time the end of this movie, but when they get there, they make an impact. They are very, very good heels in this movie. Overall, I give this movie a 10. What do you give it, Butch?
Oh, I between an 8 and a 9, between a 4 and a 4 or 5. I do 5-point scale, so I have to just double it. In my opinion, it's a better film than High Plains Drifter. Even though they tell a very similar story. I mean, this is basically kind of the beginning is kind of the same as Shane, where a little child is asking for someone to come save their people, and this stranger shows up, and even at the end, she's like, "Come back!" I mean, she doesn't say Shane, but it's a very similar film. So, yeah, 4, 4.5, 8 or 9. Take your choice there.
For those who've never seen Shane is your first superhero western. Okay,
I'm gonna let you in on something.
Good.
I have never seen Shane.
Really? We got to change that then.
Well, I've got a little mental list of films, and I've been looking and going through it, and I was like, the problem is I saw the ending of Shane one time on cable. The shootout, him leaving, and the little boy going, "Come back, Shane, come back." It's like, well, I don't need to watch this film now. And I kind of felt that same way the entire time.
When I was growing up and watching westerns with my grandfather, Shane is a western that is still rarely shown on television to this day. And when it came on one night, my grandfather said, "You got to watch this because it's rarely shown and it's a really great western." And I'm glad he showed it to me because it is. It's really great. And years later, the Jerky Boys movie came out, and at the beginning, when the guy's walking down the runway, "Shane, come back!" Which I thought was funny, but yeah, it's a really great Western, and I can't wait for you to watch it. You'll enjoy it. You'll really, really enjoy it. Is there anything you want to add about Pale Rider before we go?
Let me double check my notes. I think we got everything. My wife's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, sitting at the kitchen table writing notes down of things I remembered and said. No, that's everything.
To the lovely Mrs. Jill Rosenbaum. Butch writes everything down because the host is lazy.
Butch writes everything down because he's getting old and can't remember squat anymore. And then later it's like, oh, I was going to say this. Oh, I was going to say that. Oh.
My wife goes, well, no, Julie goes, why don't you take notes like Butch? I'm like, I'm not here to take notes.
I'm trying, Julie. I'm trying.
Oh my God. Here's a question for you. I wanted to ask you some video game questions before we went.
Sure.
Have you ever played Mass Effect 1 and 2?
I've played one of them. I don't remember which one it was. I want to say it was 2. You got to choose your responses to questions if that helps.
Yeah. And here's the thing: the creators sort of lie. They say the choices are like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. Bullshit. It's full on Renegade. The choices are more like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader choices. Okay, like, oh, I can press this button and nuke an entire colony just for the hell of it, just to get this one guy. Push. Like, the developers clearly did not understand the decisions they were leaving the player to do.
Well, yeah, it's like in Red Dead. When your honor gets low, like, I'm in the epilogue and I'm just going around, getting skins. I want to get all the outfits and try to get 100% completion. And my honor is so low because it's so easy to lose honor.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to get it back. I mean, I don't really want to walk around Saint Denis for hour and a half of real time. Hey, partner, how you doing? This life, it's something. Hey, mister, you pal. So I have found out it's easier to get honor if you do chores around the ranch. So I've been doing that, but I can't stand Abigail. I think that's something I realize that the choices you make in Mass Effect do have consequences, but Red Dead kind of punishes you if you make bad choices. It's like my honor's low, so I'm like riding around and they'll be like, "Hey, mister," and I'm like, "Stay away." I mean, there was one I was playing recently, and I just said, "Hey," I didn't antagonize. It was greed or whatever the nice version is, and the guy pulled his gun out. I'm like, dude, I think I may have hit the controller and almost kicked him or something, but
I have a feeling. I have a feeling you were in the lovely, lovely town of Van Horn, where they draw their gun quicker than Wild Bill Hickok.
I only go to Van Horn if I have to. I'm much more likely to stay around, the Strawberry and what's the other one there close to Strawberry that has the stockyards right there in front of it.
Oh, the Valentine.
Strawberry Valentine and Saint Denis. I mean, I make like a skinny rectangle usually, unless it's like, I've had a bad day at work. It's like,
I gotta tell you,
let's go looking for some Lemoyne Raiders.
I gotta tell you how much of an instigator I am with Red Dead Redemption 2 when I'm playing story mode. I basically live in the town of Van Horn just to shoot people and get shot at back because it is so. Literally, a fist fight can cause a shootout in that town, and I kid anybody not. Ask Butch.
I accidentally punched somebody early in the game. I don't remember what I was doing now, but I accidentally punched them there in the bar. Oh Lord! Next thing I know, like half the town, including me, is dead, and it's like I hit the one wrong button. So yeah, I think it's one of the reasons I don't hang around there very much.
A PC, an NPC, kid you not, when I was throwing dynamite, shot my dynamite in midair. Fucking shit. And I'm like, oh really? Really? Then I pulled my 6-year-old, like bam, 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 bam. And then 3 people came behind me, and yeah, I was dead after that. So, and that all happened within a few seconds. With me just arriving in Van Horn, that lets you know everything. But what's your pick for next week, Butch? It's your turn to pick, sir.
I want to go with something a little lighter, a little happier, a little more fun. Magnificent Seven.
Ooh, very, very nice.
First one.
What a cast, by the way. What a cast.
The original Expendables. However, Joel, and I'm pulling this on him, he doesn't know. I can't do next week, so it'll need to be 2 weeks.
Okay, so 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, Butch Rosenbalm will return. I'm not going to ask where you're going because I don't want to know.
Ask me no questions, and I'll tell you no lies.
Want to hear the best? I'll tell you this with Red Dead Redemption 2. If you go up, because if you go up into the snowy mountains, you'll basically see nobody up there because that's no man's land. But if you go up in the mountains, there's the one where basically where Arthur ends up getting killed in the story mode. Somewhere up there's like this monk sitting on a hill. I gotta tell you, Butch, in story mode, my character's going straight to hell because I killed that guy.
And he will not talk to you up on Mount Hagen.
Yeah, I went. Listen, I got the double barrel shotgun. I put it in first person, and I just blew his head off. Anyway.
And you me bloodthirsty.
Hey, listen. When you play a Western game that fun, you're supposed to have all the fun you want, and I do. My wife goes, "Why do you keep going back to Van Horn when you're just going to shoot everybody? Isn't that a little insane?" Never mind. Look who I fucking married. And so, shout out to my wife who's working. But Butch, buddy, it's been a lot of fun discussing Pal Rider and some video games with you, my friend. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Be safe, buddy.
Take care, bud. Appreciate it. Have a good time.
Yep, you too. Bye.
See ya.